Man watches mom's wedding video, notices one startling detail. He looked at the strange man in the old videotape and the blood drained from his face. His heart stood still, his breath shallow as the feeling of fear paralyzed him. As the man reached out to his mom, he caught a glimpse of the man's watch. It was the kind of watch that told everyone around him that he was a wealthy and powerful man. But it was his forced smile, his horrid facade away. It was a hard day for 52-year-old Mark Welling as he cleaned out his parents' house in San Francisco, California. Mark was an only child who loved his parents deeply. When they passed away years ago, he just could never quite bring himself to go through their stuff. But now, as he planned to sell the house, he couldn't avoid it any longer. As far as Mark could remember, he had a very happy childhood. His parents hardly ever fought and treated him with kindness and unconditional love. He knew he was lucky to have come from a loving home with parents he always felt he could rely on. But he was about to find out that not everything was as it seemed. He watched the old tape, smiling at how young and in love his parents were, but then things took a dark turn. The strange ominous figure smiled in the background. It had been years since Mark was in this house. The last time he was here was to put everything in order and storage after they both had passed. He left that day in tears, and the same would happen this time, but for all the wrong reasons. It wasn't long before Mark found himself looking through boxes of old videotapes. Each one was labeled neatly, except for one. The videotape with no label got the better of Mark's curiosity, so he decided to play it to find out what it was. Surprisingly, it was a video of his parents' wedding day. Why wasn't this labeled? Mark watched the wedding unfold in delight. He recognized his aunts and uncles, all of which he hadn't seen in years. They were all so young and happy. But then the camera kept filming another man. He looked to be very close to his parents. He also looked vaguely familiar to Mark. Suddenly, a wash of fear came over him. Who was he? As the footage continued, he noticed his mom began to look unsettled. There was strange eye contact occurring between his mom and one of his dad's best men behind him. It was that strange man again. Suddenly, his mom broke down in tears at the altar and began to shout at this man. Then his father stepped in and suddenly his parents were fighting on their wedding altar. In shock, Mark wondered what happened. Mark knew his parents very well, and this kind of behavior was so unusual for them. He needed to find out what happened, especially since they never ever mentioned anything like this happening on their wedding day. He started looking for clues. He sensed the strange man was the cause of the tension, but he didn't know why. Then he grabbed another tape, and a chill went down his spine. It was a birth video. Mark was born and resting sweetly in his mom's arms, but standing in the room with his mom and dad was that man again. This time, however, they seemed to be a big happy family. Were they friends? What was happening? Why did he feel like something was very wrong? What he saw next had his memories flooding back. As the man reached out to hold him, he caught a glimpse of the man's watch. It was the kind of watch you'd never forget. Expensive looking, sharp. A watch that told everyone around him that he was a wealthy man. A man more powerful than most. He watched as the man lifted him to share a kiss on his forehead and shuddered at the deceitful appearance. Suddenly, Mark realized that somewhere within his memory lay a hidden box full of forgotten encounters with this man. He studied him again, now looking at his clean suit and tidy haircut. He really did look immaculate. He behaved in such a polite and respectful way that no one could ever have guessed what he did. The man was his estranged uncle, Gerard. He was a wealthy man that used to come to his birthdays and other family occasions. Always bringing big gifts and a welcoming smile. He had stopped going to family events when Mark was young, maybe about 5, and Mark never knew why. What happened to him? And why did Mark feel so strange looking at him? Mark's mother always avoided talking about him once he stopped dropping by. He remembered asking about him once only to be met with a soft voice, saying not to ask about him again. Mark always knew he wasn't as kind and generous as he appeared to be. So later, when he found out he was a gang leader who earned his wealth illegally, everything made sense. But why the wedding day fight? Judging by his mom's character, Mark surmised that she must have found out what he was doing on her wedding day and couldn't hold back her feelings, even on the altar. Mark never knew where he went, so he googled his name. He found that he was arrested not long after he stopped showing up to family events. But where was he now? Mark wondered if he was still alive. He looked for any further information about his life now. Mark found he was now living an honest life in Santa Barbara, California. He contacted him and found out that, after he lost his family, he changed his life around. Now he lived a quiet life by the seaside and had kept himself out of trouble for 25 years. A reunion is being planned.